fifth stage, turning and burning in holiness with the sacred flame before you. If you remember, we began in the desert. You were crawling on your hands and knees, your stomach very hungry, your throat dry and tight, until a divine spark that was hope illuminated in front of you. And this divine spark was the first stage. That was hope. After some time, you were able to lift your head up in holy remembrance, in curiosity, the second stage. And from this place of curiosity, you began to ask questions like, who am I? Are there things in this life worth believing in? Are there still things in life worth fighting for? From this place of curiosity, you began to gain more hope and more strength. And so you rose up in love, and you rose up in wonder. The third stage. And this is when you saw a waterfall before you, and you began to run to this waterfall. And you basked in it, you bathed in it, you took nourishment from the water, sustenance, and you waited there and you took rest and respite, and eventually you were ready. This was exploration, the fourth stage, and then the nearby jungle called you. And so you went to explore that jungle, and this time it was different questions. It wasn't who, it was why. Why am I here? And after this very long year, my friends, you might have also asked another why. Why are these things happening? Why is there suffering? Why is there pain? Why? And so we recognize in this moment that from this place of challenge, it has also been very fruitful. You have accumulated a lot of answers now. Lots of ideas, lots of dreams, lots of visions that have led you to this place, this cave, this holy cave. So it is here now where I invite you to stare, to gaze upon this sacred flame in front of you. This is where we remember to come back to the brilliance of stillness. It is also where we remember to come back to God. Take a few moments to gaze upon the sacred flame on this longest night of the year until the light comes up again. Blessings. So we are still in the cave, but now the light is with us. I was asked a very good question the other day. And that question was this: how do we handle adversity? How do we handle adversity? And without thinking, I answered, God. Very matter of factly, God. Now, I've given probably almost 150 sermons here alone at the Revolution of Love, and in that time, I have sort of weaved and danced with how do I talk about the importance of having a personal relationship with God when all of us in this room are fairly different as far as how we believe in God, how we refer to God, if we even believe in a higher power. The Revolution of Love, that's what makes it so brilliant, is that we are all so very different. So I weave, like I said, I weave in and out, and I highlight in these sermons the importance, I bring it forth, it's important, but I kind of do it through the back door. And tonight, and Reverend April, you already spoke to this, tonight, today, and these times, I'm sort of done with back doors. Because the thing is that not only is the back door open, but the front door is open, the windows are open, the curtains are wide open, everything is open and becoming more available for God to be ushered in, for peace to be ushered in, for love to be ushered in. So we have to move on this. We have to move on it. There is no time to lose. There is no time to waste. So I'm going to talk about a few things tonight. I'm going to talk about the brilliance of stillness, how I was referencing this just now as we were in this sacred place in the cave. I will talk about that. Why stillness? Why does it matter? And I will also talk about the importance of having a personal relationship with God, a God that works for you, a God that you can understand, a God that you can go to in the stillness, in the pain, in the joy, in the struggle, whatever. There comes a time when we can no longer ignore what is happening. There comes a time when silence is complicity. But before we motivate, before we move, as we are in this dark night, we must remember to be fully resourced, and we do that with God. So let us not jump over any steps at all. No. Let us remember first, let us be in this cave. Let us be with the stillness. Let us be with the holy. From that place, then we spring forward and we motivate and we move. And we reckon with the messiness and all that is there. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So, a word about stillness. Let's go back. My grandparents, my whole family's from Chicago, and it's a serious accent, Chicago. And so, my grandparents, being from Chicago, they wanted to often escape the harsh winters. And so they would come around this time of year, actually, to our home in Los Angeles. And I was a young girl, and I loved these times. It was full of laughter and joy. And, my grandfather was just a real sage, a real, very wise man. And my grandfather loved going to the Y back in Chicago for his morning swims. So something that my father decided to do was to heat our outdoor pool. So Grandpa Walt could continue with this morning ritual, right? I remember one morning, my grandmother, grandfather, and I, we were swimming outside in this heated pool. And to me, it was freezing outside, but of course to them it was nothing, being from Chicago. And there was my grandfather just floating, just floating, and looking up, yes, looking up at the sky, and just without really, just saying it, just uttering, isn't this something? Swimming in the wintertime outside. Just that. Then he went on and he was saying, look at how green, look at how they're floating, look at how green the leaves are. Look at how bushy the trees are. I mean, think about Chicago, it wouldn't be like this. Look at how green the trees are, look how bushy the trees are. Look at how the sky is. Look at the smell in the air. And he's just going, just noticing everything. And I knew in that moment, I was witnessing something very special. And that there was a profundity in this simplicity. He was still. He was just in this moment of stillness. It was like a whole nother frequency. And I got to see it. I got to witness that. Many of us, I don't know about you, I don't know where you fall on this spectrum, but many of us are in the doing a lot. We're constantly doing something. We're in action all the time, and that's okay. Except when it starts becoming like, even in your spiritual practice, it's like a to-do list. Like, and I did my yoga, and I did my meditation, and I got a coaching call, and it's just almost like this bum 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 bum. Instead of it, there being a grace to it. This is the doing. That's not stillness. No. Or, and I will call myself out on this, or there can be moments where you're not necessarily hibernating or in a state of not doing. You're almost binging out on Netflix. Binging out on like a Law and Order episode or season, or whatever it might be. But the point being is that maybe you're stuck. So it's not stillness. It's actually, there's a feeling of being frozen. Being frozen, and that's very different. Again, that's not stillness. That's not what we're talking about tonight. So what we're talking about is the sweet spot. The sweet spot between the doing, and all the commotion, being kind of frenetic, which I get that too sometimes. And then the other part of where you're almost frozen, hunkering down. There's a whole sweet, delicious place in between. And this is this place, perhaps in the cave. Perhaps in the cave, where you see the flame, and there is something that begins to well up within you, and there is something that begins to make you, through this focus, through just a soft focus, there's a place where you begin to become more available, and in the availability, you become more receptive. And this is very important if we are going to usher in a new and improved relationship with God. Because this, like I said, this sweet spot of beautiful tension is how our hearts open, our minds open, and we become more available and more receptive. Yes?
Yes.
Now, getting weirder at the revolution. So, let's explore a little more. We talked some about stillness. Let's talk a little bit about something else. I'm going to do this. So, we're at a time of year where we were taught to believe in someone or something. Yes? Yes. And, start with this. And so that someone or something was really probably a highlight in your life, in my life. Let me just get my attire on. the most interesting part here. I'm trying to do this. There was a beard. The beard I decided to ixnay. Let's see if I can do it. Okay.
All right.
So getting there. Getting there.
Getting there.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Sorry. Sorry, Santa. Okay. And now. Pardon me. So. Hello.
Like those gray.
So we were taught to believe in this, yes?
Yeah.
And I think what this represented was a lot of what I teach in this HopeCycle. You know, hope. He brought hope. He brought curiosity. He brought wonder. He brought exploration, like, you know, through imagining, through creating. And as Farai pointed out to me the other night when I ran this past him, presence. He brought presence. Magic. He brought magic. And then at some point we all found out. We found out that it wasn't true. And that it wasn't real. And so everything began to change, yes? Slowly. Now, what if? What if? Change this up a little bit. Anyone know where I'm going with this? I see a nod. And imagine that this, I need a different mic. Imagine that this black coat is really a robe. Okay. And now who am I looking like?
Our Lord.
This is the image that many of us in this room might have been raised with as far as God. I was. On the throne, staff in hand, looking down at my minions. This is how many of us were raised. Maybe not exactly the same for you, but in fact, you know, commonly. As I said in a sermon a few months ago, the childhood God, how we were raised up with spirit, often is not going to work for us as adults, is it? Most of us have long left that, long left this. And that's okay. But here is what is important to know. Is that you must reckon with and reconcile the God of your childhood. Come to terms with it. Because if there's residue where even just the word God might make you shudder, or if you just feel very absent or disconnected from spirit, it's going to make it that much harder when you're in the cave. Because when we're in the cave and we're with that flame, without God, you're going to feel very alone. After a year that has been very long and arduous, where many of us are feeling what you spoke to, just being depressed, feeling exhausted. We need to be reminded that God is able, that God is with us, that God is in the aloneness, and it is not aloneness, that is in fact all oneness. In the cave, that God is the flame. That God is in everything. It doesn't matter. And how long am I going to sit like this, is what you're probably wondering right about now. I don't know, we'll see. But it doesn't matter what God is. In a sense, what matters is that you come to terms with whatever your God should be. Is it a flower? Is it a tree? You call it Allah, Krishna, Buddha, Vishnu. It doesn't matter. It just matters that you deeply connect. Deeply. This is really all I wanted to say to you tonight. I want to charge you. I want to charge you with really digging deeper than you ever have. This whole life is about healing and loving. This whole life is about healing and loving ourselves, assisting other people, and in that process, what that means is we need God. Doesn't matter what it is. I have a friend that golf was God to him. It doesn't matter, but you gotta seek it when you're in the cave. Does anyone remember the movie The Matrix? Mm-hmm. Do you remember when Neo goes to meet the Oracle? Mm-hmm. This 5th stage of the HopeCycle is really where we go and we meet the Oracle. We go and we meet God. That's a pretty extraordinary thing. There are a lot of times in life where we can say, I get to go and meet God. I need God. But you know what else? God needs us. God needs each of you to show up and to say yes. So, I think this is basically the end and the finish of my humble prayer. I've been pondering Psalm 46:10 lately, and that is, be still and know that I am God. So when you go home tonight and you go through the rest of this year, as you are trying to make sense and you're wrestling with all of the messiness that has been with us, all of the confusion, all the death, the transition, also all of life, the movement, Standing Rock. I mean, tremendous things did happen this year. Just keep coming back to the nugget, this beautiful nugget of, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. And go into the cave. And just gaze upon the sacred flame. Ask and you shall receive. This is my humble prayer. Many blessings to you. Happy holidays to you. Happy New Year to you. Till